Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another of the Project Orchid videos. This in fact is the last update prior to the terminal video or videos. Not sure yet. How about this for an idea to end the project? For each plant I bring forward all of the stills. First of all we have a quick look at the plant and then superimpose the stills throughout the whole of the project, so that will be one update after the other in sequence, and then we come back to the original plant and just finalize how it has done and do each plant as a separate video. Now, okay, it means the project won't all end together, but if I do that with each plant, the video is going to be huge. And you know, not everybody's interested in all the plants, so if I separate them out, people can either pick on each one they like or watch all of them. Up to you. Say what you think for that as the idea of the end of the project. The end of the project is in May. Middle of March now, it'll be right at the beginning of May. And if we do each plant as an individual video, then I can leave several days in between with other stuff in between so that they're not one after the other. That's an idea anyway. As this project has progressed, it's evolved. And my latest idea, which would have been nice if I'd had at the beginning, was to actually put my turntable on a pot so that the whole of the plant is surrounded by the blue background, as opposed to having my table as the base, which is not a nice colour. That sort of gets the plant to stand out completely. So it would have been nice to have done that at the beginning, but I didn't think of it at the beginning. I thought of it today. Anyway, first plant, Masdevallia falcata. This has been a successful Masdevallia. You have to bear in mind many Masdevallias in the past have not made it through their second year. A lot of that was the heat at the old place, and some of it was bringing poor plants into this world, and they didn't adapt because they were already poor plants because of the heat in the other place. However, this plant was brought into this environment and seems to have adapted really well. It has many new leaves, progressing nicely, coming out in various places. We have had blooms on it, but not many. I suspect the longer day lengths and brighter light that go with that sort of environment may actually induce some more blooms. We have had some. Now we've got root activity, more than we've had before. It's starting to show in various places now. So whereas there was hardly any roots showing in the pot, there's now some. It's not what I'd call a good root mass yet, but it's making progress. That's the main thing. As long as it's growing roots and they don't die, and the plant has reasonable leaves that don't keep dropping off, it should be okay longer term. And when I get my new environment coming soon, in fact, we will be working on it tomorrow. It should make an amount of difference to these sorts of plants. Anyway, as far as progress is concerned with this one, I'm very pleased. It's hung in there. It's got bigger as time has gone on, and we'll notice that when we do the end of project video for it, because we'll be going right back a year ago to what it was like then, and we'll bring it forward. And as we come forward, I think one of the videos has actually got the blooms in, so we'll actually see the blooms. But yes, very pleased with that. No comparison in this video, I'm just doing an update. I haven't got the time, basically. So that's plant number one, Masdevallia falcata. Plant number two is my Coelogyne cristata. Now this, the spikes had started to progress the last time we looked at this. No buds were showing or anything, the spikes were just extending after their initial growth, which tends to sit still for quite a while on these. and then they start to move, and then after that they come into bloom relatively quickly. This is holding its blooms quite well. This actually went into our show the other Saturday and got a second in the class, which for such a small plant is actually quite good actually, because this is not a big plant, there's not much to it. You know, it's got a few old bulbs with no leaves and 2 extensions, you know, with nice big bulbs on the end, both with leaves, but that's all the plant is really. But we've got some reasonable roots in the pot, some of which are actively growing around the front here. What we don't have yet is roots growing from the front of these 2 rhizomes. Once it's finished flowering, I'm going to move it in the pot, which will probably mean taking the oldest bulb off, as long as that can come off without splitting the plant in 2. And then I can get it farther back in the pot and actually pin those rhizomes down, so that even if they don't produce roots, the next bulbs will. And once these flowers are finished, we should get a new growth. Yeah. So this type of coelogyne, different to a lot of others. A lot of others put up what looks like a growth, and actually is, but it flowers out of the top and then continues growing and turns into the bulb. This type, however, don't grow like that. They appear to be similar at first, so they put up the same sort of thing and what looks like a new growth, and then the flower spike comes out the top, but then it dies. The growths are actually entirely separate. They do look quite different as well. And we should get our new growths once these blooms are finished, and I'm pretty sure they come out of the sheath on the other side of the bulb. From memory, that's a long time ago. Anyway, very attractive flowers. I'm glad it managed to flower as part of the project, and part of its evolution is that it was good enough to go into a show and get a second place. I don't mind coming second to the most gorgeous coelogyne that was about 2 foot across. Massive specimen plant, absolutely covered in blooms. That's fine. Anyway, that's that one. Progress is being made, albeit slow. These are not vigorous growers, although they can be once they head up to that specimen size. But they need the bulk. It seems like they need lots of old pseudo bulbs and lots of growths all going on, and then they move a lot quicker. But you know, this is still a relatively small division. So that's plant number 2. And the next one is our Miltoniopsis her Alexandrae, and this has been in bloom. I can't remember whether it was actually in bloom during the last update or whether it had just finished and it was in the previous one. I can't remember, but basically we've had blooms on this during the project. Now the art of keeping Miltoniopsis going is not to let the media get stale, so that when the new roots come out, they come out into reasonable media and don't need to be disturbed. Now this hasn't long been in the pot, so that can happen. And last time we looked at it, I wasn't sure whether this was a young growth or a new growth. Well, it's actually starting to grow roots, which means it's a new growth, which means it could possibly flower, even though it doesn't look large. But if it's a relatively new growth and it's pushing out roots, then obviously it's going to get bigger and form a bulb, and if it does that, it may well flower. Obviously it is a flowering size plant. Our spike's over here on that bulb. Is that the only one? Yeah, I think so. And then we've got another growth here which also looks a little bit like it might be a newish growth, but it could be a smaller growth from when the plant was younger. And then here, tucked in there, is what looks like another growth, and that is well trapped in there, so that's going to have to survive probably without roots, because I doubt if the roots will push through a complete leaf and some bracts. And I don't want to take that leaf off. These young growths, when they're like this, are very susceptible to rot, and they often get that because the plant's sunk too deep in the media, and the new growth is in wet media, and that doesn't do them any good at all. So we've had blooms, it's making reasonable progress, and like Miltoniopsis before it, has not died. The latest leaf here is a little bit concertinaed, but I can get my nail down through it and open it, and then inside is the next leaf. If I gently pull that without breaking it into the big bad wide world like this, then it will grow on separately and open up as an individual leaf. So this new growth isn't hydrating as well as it ought to, but we do have, I can see at least 3 new roots coming out. They will get down in the media because they're right on the surface, so they should be okay. So anyway, a Miltoniopsis that's actually growing and producing roots is a little bit of a novelty for me, because many in the past have not made it. I think I've lost more Miltoniopsis than any other genus, but I keep trying because I like them so much. You know, I sort of think, you know, if you've paid whatever 20 quid for a plant that lasts you a couple of years and blooms, it's in bloom when you get it and it blooms again and then it fades away, you've still had reasonable value for money. But these are fussy. They don't like stale media. They don't like soggy wet roots. They like to be damp, and it's that cloud forest environment that is one of the most difficult to get, because you need the day length, but you don't want bright light, and you want a moist environment in its entirety. So media just moist, air moist, bit of airflow, breezes coming up the mountainside. It's a very difficult environment, cloud forest, cold cloud forest. And obviously they need to stay cool. They don't like heat at all. Literally, they have difficulty hydrating when it's hot. They're not designed for it. They're designed to be constantly damp. The atmosphere around them, their root base, they're just sort of damp. And in your environment, if it starts getting warm, you lose that. And they don't like it. They're fussy. So anyway, this one seems to be doing okay. This is our new growth, so we will home in on that. You can't miss it. It's got 3 little growth stones in front of it. And we'll see how that's progressed in 6 weeks' time. So that's that one. Pleased with that. Okay, the next one. This has probably had the most changes throughout the project. This was bought as a couple of bulbs in bloom at the Wisley show, so this time of year, a year ago, from Burnham's. So the progress of the plant was those 2 bulbs finished blooming, they grew their leaves, we grew the leaves on through the growing season last year. They then went into autumn and their leaves died and dropped off, and we were left with dormant bulbs through the winter. And during some time down the line, those couple of bulbs were joined by many more from my friend Helen. And then eventually what we did is we potted all the bulbs together in this communal pot, which is how it is now. The original bulbs from Burnham's, one of them is the big one in the centre. I'm not quite sure where the other one went, but it's in there somewhere. This Pleione Tongariro is a very vigorous hybrid. Most bulbs produce 2 shoots, some produce 3. They often produce 2 blooms as well as 2 shoots. They bulk up. They multiply readily, so we will have a massive pot full by the end of this growing season. The blooms are absolutely stunning. They're a lovely vibrant colour. I'm well pleased. And what we have here is some blooms have already been and gone, and their leaves are pushing on now, so we're starting to see the leaves progressing. We're going to have a big pot full of leaves here. And it will need very heavy watering and feeding. Now, by the time we get to see this in 6 weeks' time, I suspect all the blooms will be long gone and our leaves will be progressing well. I can't say what roots we've got because it's in a clay pot. And that was deliberate because the clay pot will help keep the roots cool. Yeah? This is a cool grower. It's an alpine basically, so cool and dry through the winter, and then moisture during the summer months, the growing season. But they're a dappled shade, they're a woodland plant, so they're not a bright light plant. Anyway, I'm pleased that these are growing, and I was very pleased to get some more from Helen. They also have an annoying habit of pushing out bulbils on the very top of the bulb itself. This particular bulb has got 2 already. But in nature they do that, some, not all, and they fall off into an environment where they're highly likely to be able to root. So it is a natural thing for them to do. So the only downside I think with Pleiones is the blooms themselves don't last long. And I suppose, like some other orchids, you do end up with a period where there's absolutely nothing going on. It's just a dormant bulb. The roots effectively have died, the leaves have died off, and you're just left with the bulb for the dormant winter period. So there's nothing going on. But there's other orchid types that do that. They grow their leaves each year and then they die back again. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Catatantes, do they do that? No, that's a hybrid. Castanier or whatever it is. But there are others that, you know, become dormant and leafless. So I'm pleased with this, and I'm very, very pleased to see these blooms again. It's a very vibrant colour, sort of glows at you. So good progress here. And the last one is the Cymbidium copper, and I have to give up on the pretty presentation with this because the plant's just too big. Well, you could say my board's not big enough, but I've stood it upright rather than lengthways, so it's now portrait. So it at least goes up to the top of the plant, but then it's not wide enough. So either way, it doesn't work. And I've had to get the camera off onto my hand so that we can have a look at this. Now, this Cymbidium has been in bloom. The very first bloom cracked open in the middle of November, and we're now in the middle of March. I reckon that's pretty good going. So it's a plant well worth hanging on to. There's no sign of the new growth yet, but that's probably because it's still hanging on to the blooms. The blooms are going, one's already dropped. I mean, they are starting to get tatty around the edges, and they've lost their colour, they faded. So they're a lot paler looking than they would be naturally. What we've got is 2 leaved bulbs, which are now effectively old bulbs. And a load of back bulbs that are coming off. Now, there's no room for a new growth coming off of the latest bulb. It's too tight. If you look at the size of the bulbs, it's too tight to the pot, so it has to be repotted. And it's actually, I think this is its 3rd year. Probably, maybe it's 4th. I think it's probably more like 3.5. But it needs to be repotted for the position of the plant. Lost a few leaves, only 1 or 2, but they've come off this oldest bulb. But if all the leaves come off of this oldest bulb, that leaves 1 leaved bulb, and that's not a strong plant. So I'm hoping the spike's going to come off soon. I'm not going to cut it off until it really has finished, though. You know, I mean, there's still a couple of blooms that are reasonable. Well, there's 1. The others are getting a bit sad, but yeah, I mean, you see they are getting a bit sad. But it's lasted incredibly well, and it's a nice self-supporting spike. Look at the size and strength of that spike. No staking required. Absolutely rigid, all on its own. So I like that. It's not a large number of blooms, but the blooms are large and they do open up reasonably well, so I like this one. But yes, we will need a repot. I'm going to remove the back bulbs completely. I mean, this one's soft, so it's starting to rot. Yeah, the one closest to the plant I'm keeping is also starting to get a bit soft. So as soon as the spike comes off, I'd hope to see a new growth before I repot it, because then I can guarantee we've got new roots coming. Although, you know, if you watch Jim Durrant repot the Cymbidiums at Mather's, he hacks most of the roofs off anyway, apart from the very front of the plant, and he just leaves those. All the rest come off. You know, it's a real hack. I'm not going to be quite as vicious as that. I will try and keep the good roots on the plant, but I suspect the only good roots are from those front two bulbs. There won't be any others. So the back of the plant can come completely off, and then that can be set up again in a new pot with nice new media and hopefully grow a nice big bulb, which may or may not flower next year. The plant is not strong, not really. Although the bulbs look good and it's had a good flowering, as a division it's not full size. It's only got 2 leaved bulbs. It should have 3, better still 4. So when we grow the next one, hopefully we'll keep the leaves on the bulbs we've got and we'll end up with 3 leaved bulbs. The following year, when it puts the 4th one up, it becomes a strong division again. So we shall see how we get on. Anyway, that's where we are with the Project Orchids. We lost the Coelogyne, the original one, which was cristata, the Lemoniana variety. That one didn't make it, so we actually lost that plant, and it was replaced by the cristata you saw in this video. So we did have one failure, but apart from that, the plants have done pretty good. And yeah, I hope you've liked the project. It's not over yet. We've got one more set to do, which may well be 5 separate videos, 1 per plant, where we sum up the whole year, you know, which includes the previous growing season, getting them through the winter and coming out into this growing season. So a complete year for each plant, probably as a separate video for each one. And that will be at the beginning of May. So those of you who like the Project Orchids, I hope you can look forward to those videos at that time. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.